Throughout history and across the globe, creation myths are one of the most common forms of myths found around the world. There are cultural, religious, or traditional stories which describe the beginnings of the present world, and since the beginning of time they have been passed down from generation to generation. While there is never any evidence to prove them right or wrong, they have become an important part of societies for millennia. Stay tuned to number 1 to discover which creation myth includes settling Earth from alien planets. Number 10. The Christian Story. Likely the most well-known creation story in the Western world, the Christian creation story is recorded in the first 2 chapters of the book of Genesis in the Holy Bible. In it, it details how God created the world and everything in it over the course of 7 days. On the first day, God created light and separated it from darkness, calling one day and the other night. On the second day, God created an expanse called the sky. On the third day, God stepped up a bit and created dry land and separated it from the gathered waters known as the seas. He also used this time to create vegetation in the form of plants and trees. On the fourth day, God created the sun, moon, and stars, which would serve as the markers of seasons, days, and years. On the fifth day, God created all living creatures of the sea and sky, and on the sixth day, He created all animals to fill the earth. It is on this day that many Christians believe that God created man and woman in His own image to care for and cultivate the earth. Finally, the seventh day was a day of rest, and God made this day a holy day. Although some still follow this belief to the word, many more Christians no longer conform to this belief, but still believe there to be a higher being that guided the creation processes. Number 9. The Norse Myth. The Norse peoples, also known as the Vikings, are remembered as a fierce group of people who raided and invaded many locations during the early Middle Ages. Given their reputation for violence, it is perhaps not surprising that their creation myth was also steeped in violence. They believed the world was created from the body of Ymir, a giant frost ogre. From his blood, the seas and lakes were made. From his flesh, the earth was formed. From his hair, the trees were created, and the mountains were created from his bones. His teeth and other broken bones made the rocks and pebbles. From his skull, the sky was created, and on each corner they placed a dwarf, whose names were the translations of North, South, East, and West. The story then goes on to explain the development of the gods and the link between heaven and earth. All of this is recorded in the Prose Edda of Snorri Sturluson, and is definitely worth the read. Number 8. The Ancient Greek Myth. Another well-known creation myth is that of the ancient Greeks. Recorded in Hesion's Theogony, it describes how chaos existed in the beginning, and out of the void came Gaia, or the earth, and other beings. Gaia then miraculously gave birth to Uranus, what we call the sky, without any male assistance. Uranus and Gaia then go on to have 12 children, the first 12 titans, of which Cronus is one. Gaia later persuades her son Cronus to castrate his father, which he does. However, Cronus himself is later betrayed by his own son, Zeus, when he challenges his father to a war for the kingship of the gods. After Zeus was victorious, Cronus and the other titans were banished to Tartarus. When it came to the creation of animals and humans, Zeus sent Prometheus and Epimetheus to create them and give each creation a gift. While Epimetheus was working on the animals, he mistakenly gave all the gifts away, which left Prometheus with nothing to give humans. As a result, he gave them fire, which angered Zeus, as fire was meant to be reserved for the gods, and Prometheus was punished for eternity for that mistake. In turn, Epimetheus was given a woman called Pandora, who was given numerous gifts by the gods, but one she was told to never open. As expected though, she did open Pandora's box, and all the horrors of today, pain, sickness, envy, greed, everything, they all flew out. Although Epimetheus rushed home and closed the box, the damage was already done. Sometime later, they heard a voice from within the box, which they in turn released, and this gift entered the world to give hope to humankind. Number 7. Ancient Sumerian Myths. The Sumerian peoples, considered the first literate civilization of ancient Mesopotamia, lived in an area situated in modern-day southern Iraq. To make our lives a little bit more complicated, the Sumerians have more than one creation myth. The main source of information comes from the opening of the Epic of Gilgamesh, where it briefly describes the creation process. However, other stories have also been recorded on other clay tablets. Rather simply, one version of the story states that in the beginning there was only Namu, the primeval sea. Then Namu gave birth to On and Ki, the sky and earth. These two mated, and Ki gave birth to Enlil, the god of wind, rain, and storm. There are other Sumerian creation myths, such as the debate between the sheep and grain and the debate between the winter and summer, both of which are written philosophical debates that address humanity's place in the world. As one of the earliest civilizations to utilize writing, their stories offer us a glimpse of how some of the earliest civilizations viewed the world and its creation. Number 6. The Mosi Myth. The Mosi are a group of people with a long history in an area of Africa known today as Burkina Faso. One of the main aspects of their religion is the all-powerful creator, the Naba Zidwenda, who ruled the kingdom of everlasting truth, which was the only thing that existed in the beginning. At this point, there was no earth, no day or night, and even time itself did not exist. The story goes that the Naba Zidwenda created the earth and then the day and night. To differentiate between the two, the Naba Zidwenda made the sun to make the day a time of activity, and made the moon to make the time a night of rest, which created time itself. At the beginning, the earth was covered in fire. So to make the earth habitable, the Naba Zidwindi blew on it to cool the fire and ordered it to live within the earth, making the surface safe for life. To make sure it was indeed solid and cool enough, the Naba Zidwindi sent chameleons, snakes, and large animals like elephants and the buffalo to test the strength and temperature of the earth. When all appeared to be in order, the being set about creating humans. The story goes on to discuss other aspects associated with the creation of humans and of Naba Zidwindi's disappointment at the actions of humans, which tends to be a common thing among some creation myths. Number 5. Ancient Egyptian Myths. As demonstrated in another Zero to Hero video, Ancient Egypt, Most Amazing Facts You Didn't Know, the ancient Egyptians were a society of people that developed and changed over the course of 3,000 years. As a result, it is perhaps not at all surprising that they had more than one creation myth, which attributes creation to different gods. For example, in the Memphite creation myth, it was the Ptah, the god of craftsmen and architects, who is attributed with having thought the world into existence. Yet, in Heliopolis, it was the sun god, Atum, later identified as Ra, who was named the creator. Nevertheless, there are similarities between them, such as the belief that the world was created from the waters of chaos, as well as the role of the primeval mound or cosmic egg. Unlike Christianity or Islam, the ancient Egyptians didn't have one specific book like the Bible or the Quran, and instead, archaeologists and Egyptologists have had to piece together the different stories from a variety of written and visual sources. Not an easy task when you think of all the information available. Number 4. Chinese Myths. Like ancient Egypt and many other cultures from around the world, Chinese mythology contains several different creation or origin stories from throughout Chinese history. While many of the myths overlap or conflict with one another, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Indeed, it highlights how numerous social groups, rulers, and administrations could tap into and relate to the different stories to explain or authenticate their heritage. In the Nua myth, Nua is the mother goddess of Chinese mythology, and it is credited with making mankind. In another legend, the Pangu myth, Pangu is stated to be the first living being and the creator of all things. In this story, it is said that in the beginning there was nothing except chaos. Chaos then came together to form a cosmic egg out of which Pangu emerged. He then set about separating yin and yang and creating the earth and sky. He then had to keep them separated by standing between them, and over 18,000 years, the sky grew and the earth thickened. Eventually, he died, and his breath became the wind, dust, and clouds, while his voice became thunder, and other parts of his body the sun, moon, mountains, rivers, land, stars, and so on. Number 3. The Dogon Myth. The Dogon people, who live in modern Mali, have complex mythological stories and creation myths. Theirs is a good example of incestual relationships in creation myths because according to the stories, every human is the descendant of two sets of twins, a brother and a sister, and then their set of cousin twins. It is said that in the beginning, the world egg was divided into two birth sacs, which each contained a set of two twins who were fathered by Amma, the supreme being. Both sets of twins contained a male and a female twin, but each twin contained both the male and the female essence, because they clearly wanted to make things complicated. Some academics have suggested that the incestual nature of this creation myth might be an attempt to support particular ruling systems. Number 2. Dayak Creation. The Dayak people are the Aboriginal Indonesian people of Borneo. Although they are grouped together under one term, this term is very loose, and there are various ethnic subgroups with their own dialects, customs, laws, and so on. However, they do have common traits. According to their creation story, the sun and the moon were created from clay found deep in the earth by the Supreme Being. Closely associated with this myth is their creation of sacred clay vessels, which they use to ward off evil spirits. If you research creation stories in more depth, you'll actually discover that the Dayak people aren't the only culture who believe aspects of existence were created from clay. Before we get to number 1, take a moment to like this video and subscribe for more videos from Zero to Hero. Number 1. Scientology. The Church of Scientology is one of the only religions to appear in the 20th century which continues to flourish well into the 21st. Due to the secret nature of Scientology, it can be hard to find concrete information about their beliefs, especially as you need to be an advanced member to even access the secret advanced technology doctrines which include their creation myth. Nevertheless, what we do know is it is full of aliens, incarnations, spiritual powers, and much more. One of the few things we do know is of Xenu, who they believe was the tyrant ruler of the Galactic Confederacy that brought billions of people to Earth 75 million years ago. What creation myth do you subscribe to? Let us know in the comments below and take care.